Record. Okay. So I want to recap what we learned last time for the sake of any even new people. I don't know if everyone was here last week or not. We looked at a Gemara in Kedushin, really a Mishnah in Kedushin. Okay. So we looked at a Mishnah in Kedushin. And so we're going to go ahead and recap just very quick, very, very briefly what we did last week. So the Mishnah told us that if you have a fellow who asks his friend to act as his agent, and by agent I mean, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody. It just makes it much simpler. If we want to talk or chat, there are many ways of doing so, okay? Easiest way is to raise your hand. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. There we go, it's a little bit better, thank you. All right, so the Mishnah told us about this guy who is a lovely guy, and he decides he wants to marry a particular young lady. And this young lady lives at, in a place that's a little bit far away. He doesn't have the time to go. So he appoints his friend. He says, hey, you're going there anyways. Do me a favor, and will you ask her for a hand in marriage? Give her this ring, and when she takes it, she'll be married to me. And what did the guy go ahead and do? He married her himself. So now she's married to the second fellow, not to the first fellow. So the Braita, the Gemara quote, it says, Masha asa asui. What's done is done. El shenag bo minhag amos. He acted unethically. He acted in a cheating manner. He conducted himself like a cheater, and you're not supposed to conduct yourself like a cheater. The next thing we saw was a Gemara about Rav and Chasida. Rav and Chasida went to marry a particular woman for his daughter. He was traveling, and the son says, "Hey, Dad, you're going anyways. Do me a favor. While you're there, can you please marry so and so? Give her a ring. She'll be married to me." The father went, and apparently, this is all in hindsight, this becomes pretty clear. The woman or her family refused to allow her to marry the son. However, they were maskim, they did agree that she should marry the father. And so he married her himself. And the Gemara asks, how could he do this? Isn't this wrong? Isn't this called minhag ramos? Isn't this an inappropriate practice? And the Gemara says, well, he didn't have a choice because, the family wasn't willing to marry the son, and therefore he didn't act unethically and go behind his son's back. So the Gemara asks, okay, but it has the appearance of being wrong. And halachically, we want to avoid even the appearance of doing something wrong. And so the Gemara answers, you're right, it did have the appearance of being wrong. However, in this case, he was concerned that in the meantime, somebody else would come and marry her. I want to tell you a little story today that I didn't tell you last week. Everybody ready for a little story? My sister-in-law got engaged a couple of weeks ago. And Baruch Hashem, she's getting married August 11th in Toronto, which we may or may not, most likely will not be attending, unfortunately. Certainly not all of us, maybe some of us. But that is, and so Baruch Hashem, she's engaged to a young man by the name of Kobe. My sister-in-law's very good friend got engaged today. Okay? Now here's the background of the story. The young man she's engaged to is actually a friend of my brother-in-law to be. Everybody following? Okay? So that means my sister-in-law's fiance, her chatan, her chasen, his very close friend is now engaged to my sister-in-law's close friend. So two guys are engaged to two girls. The girls are good friends and the guys are good friends. It's always very nice when that happens, right? Okay. It's even nicer if they move to the same neighborhood to start their life together. It's very nice. Now listen to this. We found out, because my mother-in-law is good friends with the shadchan, that this family, the second boy's family, was given two names. Okay? Was given two names by the shadchan. One was my sister-in-law, one was her good friend. And I was on the day that my sister-in-law got engaged, that family, having no connection with my in-laws, said yes, that they would allow their son to go out with my sister-in-law. You with me? Okay? Now my sister-in-law was already engaged that day to somebody else. Okay, so then they looked into this other girl and they said yes to her. And the guy is now engaged to her. Okay? Okay? So last week, remember I told you there's a concept in last week I shared with you. There's a concept of Shema Yikadmena Acher. Last week we mentioned the idea that you want to marry somebody before somebody else comes along and grabs her. Well, guess what happened? My sister-in-law was grabbed up before the other guy had a chance to even consider. Before my sister-in-law even had a chance to consider, going out with him, because she went out with the first guy. So you think it's just a story in the Gemara about, oh, you're worried somebody else is going to marry her first? No, it's not just a story in the Gemara. These things happen all the time. Okay? I don't know how much my sister-in-law will appreciate me recording this and putting it on the shul website, but I'm not worried about it. I don't think she'll see it. Okay. All right, so that's a story of that Rabbi Chassid himself was concerned about. That in the meantime, somebody is going to come along and marry her. That was his concern, and it was a fair concern. Exactly what happened with my sister-in-law, that somebody got engaged to my sister-in-law before the other guy had a chance to think about, does he want to go out with her? Okay, that's the story. All right, so this is a recap of last week's learning. Let's go ahead and look at the Gemara further. And this is really the primary part of the sugya. This part is the famous, if you will, well-known part of the sugya here. Okay, we're starting with these words here. Rabba bar Rav Chana. Okay. We'll start with this part of the Gemara here. These will be the first couple of words here. I don't know why it changed the colors on me here. Interesting. Okay. Rabba bar Rav Chana. Rabba bar Rav Chana, this is his name here, okay? That's his name. Rabba, the son of Chana. Yohiv lezuze lerav. He gave money to Rav. Okay, so let's take a look over here. Let's put it in here. Rabba, son of Chana, or son of Bar Chana, gave money to Rav. And why did he give money to Rav? Okay. Amar, he said, Zavna nihiloi lahai ara. He said to him, buy a certain plot of land on my behalf. So who's the agent here? Rav is the agent, okay? And Rav bar Chana is the person who sends him. Also, what did Rav do? Rav bought it for himself. Now, okay, that's the story. What's the problem with that, people? Obviously, he's not allowed to do that. That's not ethical, correct? It's unethical for him to do that. That would be wrong. How could he do that? Now, let's talk about who Rav is for a second. Rav is Rav Tanu Palig. Rav is the first of the generation, in the generation of the Amoraim of the Talmud, after the Mishnah. He's such a great rabbi that he even argues with people of previous generations, which is very, very unusual. Okay, so is Rav a good guy? Yeah, probably, right? Is he a tzaddik and a Talmud Chacham? Of course. Does he know this Mishnah in our Braita that say that that what's done is done, but you acted unethically? Of course he knows the Mishnah. Of course he knows the Braita. And that's what the Gemara asks. Tanya, but didn't the Braita teach what's done is done, but he acted unethically? How could Rav do that? Okay, so that's the question. How could Rav act unethically? Okay? I'm just putting the notes here for you to remind yourself in case you need them, okay? There's a little something else here. So the Gemara answers. Well, before I get to the Gemara's answer, let's ask you. What do you guys think? You can unmute yourselves. Give me an answer. Give me an explanation, Barry, without looking at the next line of the Gemara. Okay. What can you guess? Can you suppose? I'll unmute everybody for a moment. Okay. If I could, see if it lets me. No, it doesn't let me here. Okay. Whoops. Hold on. Can anybody tell me why is it that Rav did such a thing? Anybody want to guess what the Gemara is going to answer? If in the case of the marriage, what did we answer, everybody? If you want to raise your hand, Barry, I'm trying to unmute you. Jerry, what do you say? I'm trying to unmute you. Let's see if it works. Can you press your space bar, Barry, Jerry, see if it works? Go ahead. Okay, you're good. What do you think, Jerry?
Well, in the case of the marriage, it's a case of what's done is done. But here, there's nothing done. And the question is there any danger that somebody else is going to come snap it up? But that doesn't mean he cannot buy it.
Hold on one second. Rabba, the son of Barchana, gave money to Rav to buy a plot of land for himself.
He's obligated. He's obligated by the land.
Yeah, but then he abused the trust, if you will, and he bought it for himself. So the Gemara asks, how could he do that, right?
Yeah.
So if you compare it to the case of the marriage, you would probably answer, in the case of the marriage, what do we say? They were not willing for him to marry the girl, right? So they were not willing for the mishalech, for the sender, for the girl to marry him, and therefore the agent says, okay, I'm free of my bond,
right.
Free of my mission, and I can do what I want. So the Gemara is going to have to say something similar here, that the seller of the land was not willing to sell it to Rav bar Rav Chana, but was willing to sell it to Rav. Does that make sense?
No.
That would be the parallel here. So let's take a look at the Gemara inside. The Gemara asks, Tanya, but we live in a Braita, what's done is done. But he acted unethically. And of course, Rav would never do such a thing. So the Gemara answers, Be'aga de alimi, which means it was in an area of land that belonged, a plot of land, de alimi. Alim is strong. It belonged to a bunch of very powerful people. Let's take a look at the Rashi together. Rashi says, Be'aga de alimi, Bika, it's a valley, shel bali zeroa. That means very strong people. Haita it was. V'lo yanichu l'chal adam l'knot karka etzlam. They did not allow just anybody to buy land in their area. Kind of mafia-like, right? You want to move into my neighborhood? Nobody here lives in Beverlywood, right? You want to move into my neighborhood? You have to agree to all kinds of things. And we're so strong as a union that we're going to make sure that you cannot buy here. Okay? That's how Rashi explains the Gemara. In other words, Rav bar Chana gave money to Rav. Says, listen, Rav, go to that valley, buy me a piece of land. Rav went. He says, I want to buy this land on behalf of Rav bar Chana. They said, that rabbi, we don't like that rabbi. He's going to tell us what to do. We don't want him here. I made that part up, okay? We're not interested in that kind of a rabbi. His drushes are too long on Shabbos. I don't know, whatever, right? And therefore, they said, we're not willing to sell Rav bar Chana any land in our neighborhood. Tell him to go buy somewhere else. Rav says, okay, listen, if you're not willing to sell to him, then you should sell to me. And they agreed to do so. Okay, and what justified Rav is that he couldn't sell it, he couldn't buy it on his behalf. The Gemara says, Havale, the Gemara asks, Havale Rav Nahagi be kavod le Rabba bar Rav Chana. Oh, sorry. Okay, but Agad Alimi Hava, it was an area that would belong to strong people. And le Rav Nahagi be kavod le Rabba bar Chana lo Nahagi ba kavod. They gave respect to Rabba Rav, but not to Rabba bar Chana. Okay. So then the Gemara asks the same thing which we asked before, which is what? Earlier we said that in the case of the girl, he should have gone back and told his son. So what do you think the Gemara answers? Same thing. He should have told him. Rav should have gone to Baruch Chana. Savar Ita, Adahachi Vahachi. In the meantime, Asa Ina Shachrini, another man is going to come. Zavinla is going to buy the land. Does this make sense, everybody? It makes a lot of sense. It's an exact parallel to the case of the marriage that we had earlier. Okay? Okay. Anybody have any questions before we move on in the Gemara? So far we have a case of marriage where one Reuven sends Shimon as an agent. Shimon attempts to fulfill his agency, is unable to for some reason. Most likely that the giver, the seller, was unwilling to sell or to marry, the case of the marriage, to the mishaleach, to the person that sent the agent. But then the agent says, okay, if I no longer am tied to my agency, to the person that sent to me, I can act on my own behalf. Gemara says, yeah, but it doesn't look right. It looks unethical. It looks immoral. You can't act like that. Gemara says, you're right, but the cost of losing out on the girl, the cost of losing out on the land, seems to be worth more in the pros and cons and the weighing of the challenges of the year. So you have to make a decision, and it's not the worst decision in the world. That's what the Gemara seems to be saying. Do you have a question, Sharon? I'm going to unmute you. See if I can unmute you. Hold on. Okay, Sharon, go for it. What's your question? You're still muted. Hold on. I don't hear you. Try again. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. You're not muted, but I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Okay,
Yeah.
now can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, if the Mishnah says the son asked the father to go and buy it, or the friend asked the sochen to go and buy it, the shaliach, and now the rabbi asked the other rabbi to go and buy the land.
Exactly.
All that obligates them to do it, but then for some reason or another they don't do it.
Right. But not because he chose not.
And the appearance is incorrect.
Right.
So what takes precedent? I mean, which is correct? I mean, is it always the appearance, or is it somebody like that? There was a Talmud Chacham, the Tanah, that he wouldn't do something that was, but that was wrong, so people would understand that he had a reason for doing it, or what? Where does the Gemara lend its weight? To the behavior, or to the appearance, or to the behavior?
Well, initially, it's to the behavior itself. But once the Gemara ascertains that the behavior itself was not inappropriate, then the Gemara says, hold on, there's not just the issue of doing the wrong thing, there's a secondary issue of the appearance of doing the wrong thing.
Okay.
So the answer is yes and yes. It depends on which stage you are in the Gemara.
Okay. Okay. I sort of understand that. I just don't know. So when putting under the tablecloth the issue of appearance. So okay, we know what it is, but the appearance. Forget about the appearance. What's done is done.
Okay.
So,
In other words,
what is the Gemara saying? Don't worry about the appearance. It is what it is.
because the Gemara is saying that, because the Gemara, it seems to me that what the Gemara is saying is that, hold on, I want to see if I can give it to you in a visual way. Give me a moment here. Here we go, design. No. Layout. I'm not giving it to you. I wanted to give you like a flow chart, but it's not allowing me to do it here. Okay.
That's okay. Yeah.
So it's like this. Let me show you like this. Okay. The first thing we have is, is a case, right? We have the request of the sender to the agent. Okay? That makes sense?
Yeah.
I have a minhag. I always spell the T-E-H when I type. Okay. All right, that's step number one. Step number two is, okay, step number two is the agent acts on his own behalf. Okay? Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on. Okay, you get the idea. All right? So the agent acts on his own behalf. The Gemara asks over here. The Gemara asks, is he allowed to do that? Isn't it unethical? I'm the world's worst typist. Okay? Isn't it unethical? That's what the Gemara's question is. Okay? So,
Okay.
so we've gone from here to here to here. Right?
Okay.
So the Gemara says, so here the Gemara says, no, it's not unethical. Why is it not unethical? No, because he was no longer an agent. Okay? That make sense?
For the marriage, yes, but not for the land.
Why?
Oh, yes, of course, for the land as well. Yes, yes.
For the land as well, it's going to be fine.
Yeah,
right?
no, absolutely, yes, yes, for the land.
So then the Gemara says, okay, he wasn't his agent anymore, but it looks wrong. It looks unethical. Okay?
All right.
That's what the Gemara says, right?
Yeah.
So if you're just going to go with the flowchart here, so we're going to go right over here, and then we're going to go down to here. But it looks unethical. Okay, so now, at this stage of the Gemara here, we're focused on what? On the behavior, correct?
Yeah.
So this is a behavior issue.
Which is legal.
It's legal, but it's unethical, okay?
Correct. That's right.
I love my tools, you can see that, right? At this stage over here, we're talking about the appearance issue, right? It looks bad. Is it really bad? Not really, okay? At this point, it looks bad. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's what we're worried about at this point. So at the state, so here we go. If we're going to assign numbers here, I wish there was an easy way to do that. Okay, so this is stage 1 of the Gemara. This is step 2 of the Gemara. We'll call this step. Hold on. Call that step 3. We'll call this step 4. And then we'll call this step 5. Okay? So at step 3, we're worried about the behavior issue. The Gemara says, no, it's not really a behavior issue. Why is it not really a behavior issue? Very simple. Because he didn't do anything wrong. He was no longer an agent. But step number 5 is, okay, it's true. But now you have the issue of it looking bad. Okay? So that's basically the flow of the Gemara. So in the first case, what's the sender asking the agent? To marry a particular girl. What does he do? He marries her himself. Okay. In the second case, he asks him to buy a piece of land. What does he do? He buys the land for himself. It's really as simple as that. Okay? Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm with you. I can imagine the Gemara. I mean, probably doesn't do it, but I can imagine the Gemara continuing to say something like, yes, the appearance is wrong,
Mhm.
but the person who did it was of a stature that overrides the appearance it would be with others, but they are of a stature that it would not give that appearance. In other words, people would assume because of their stature
Oh, that they.
that they would not do something unethical.
Okay. The Gemara doesn't actually say that. Sometimes Tosfos will ask, why doesn't the Gemara say X, Y, or Z? And Tosfos will answer, you're right, the Gemara could have said that, but I had a better answer. Okay? So sometimes Rishonim will definitely.
So I'll be interested to see how it answers that. Yeah.
Okay, Sharon, let's go back to you.
I think I got myself unmuted, did I?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go ahead. Go for it.
Okay. Regarding the wedding, the marriage plan, didn't the other guy buy the ring?
So he used his own money, right? That's what we said last week. That the second guy used his own money. Yeah, you definitely cannot use somebody else's ring. That's true.
All right, that's what kind of bugged me about that.
Okay, fair enough. In the case of the land as well, you have to say that Rav used his own property. Okay, are you ready? So I told you that this is kind of the setup for the Gemara that is the well-known part of this Gemara. Okay, let's go back into the Gemara now and take a look at the case that we have been waiting for. Here we go. We're going to start with Rav Gidal. Okay, Rav Gidal. Here we go. Rav Gidal have a mahapech b'hi ara. Rav Gidal was attempting to buy a particular piece of land. Azal Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Abba went, Zavna, and he bought it. Okay, that's the case. Case is simple. Okay, let's get the names straight because we'll need them for later. Rav Gidal tried to buy a piece of land. Okay, Rabbi Abba preempted him. Preempted him. Okay, that's the case. Simple as that. Is that a parallel case to us, or is it not a parallel case to us?
No.
Not really, right? There's going to be a small difference. Why? What's the major difference?
The one's not acting as the agent for the other.
Right. There's no agency over here. That's true. What is the connection between the two cases, though? What do they have in common?
Land.
One man buys land preempting another man.
Exactly. One man preempts another man's attempt to buy it. Exactly. And the only difference is, in this case, there's no agency. Now, Rabbi Zera, the first man, Rav Gidal, was not very happy. Also, Rav Gidal, he went, Kable le Rabbi Zera. He went to complain to Rabbi Zera. Now, Rabbi Zera, I guess, has said he himself wasn't strong enough to complain to Rabbi Abba, so he went to Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. He went to a fourth party. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha said to him, let's wait for the right time to complain to Rabbi Abba that he did this. Amar la, he said to him, Hamtin ad sheyale etzleinu l'regel. Wait till Rabbi Abba comes up for the Chag, because it was normal in those days to go visit the rabbi at the time of the Chag. Kisalik, when he went up, Ashachei, he found him. Amar la, he said to him the following case. Okay? So basically, you have different names over here. The first rabbi who, Rav Gidal, wanted to buy the land. Rabbi Abba preempted him. So Rav Gidal went to his Rebbe, to Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera went to Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. And Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha said, let's wait till he comes. And before we go any further, I'll share a story in Tanakh with you that you may be familiar with. Okay? The story has to do with David HaMelech. David HaMelech did something that appeared to be wrong, certainly for someone of his madrega at his level, was inappropriate. And what did he do? I'll tell you in a moment. But before I tell you what he did, let's take a look at how Natan Hanavi, that's Nasan Hanavi, let's see how he complains to David HaMelech. Natan HaNavi goes to David HaMelech and he says, imagine, he says to him, I have a following shaila for you. David HaMelech, we know from the Gemara and Brachos, teaches us that he was the posek on many areas of halacha for Klal Yisrael, even though he was the king. He was also the Gadol Hadar. He was the greatest sage of his time, or one of the greatest sages of his time. And so David HaMelech was, when Natan HaNavi came to him, he said to him, the following shaila came to the Beis Din, we need your help with it. There was a man who had one sheep, and he loved his sheep. And I don't remember if it was a sheep or a cow in the story, but just let's go with it. And he loved his sheep, and he cared for his sheep. And there was another man who had thousands of sheep or hundreds of sheep. And one little sheep is not going to make that much of a difference to him. And he went ahead and he stole the sheep from the first guy. What do you say? What should we do to the second man, to the rich man? David HaMelech was incensed. He says it's wrong, it's unethical. How could he behave like that? What did Natan HaNavi famously tell David HaMelech in response to David? He says, you pronounced the psak din over yourself. Uriah Achiti is this poor guy, has one wife, Bathsheba, and you stole her from him. You sent him to the front lines where he died in battle. It was wrong. It was inappropriate. Happens to be that Bathsheba was destined to marry David, and it was only because David HaMelech made a mistake after killing Goliath that Uriah Achitu at the time was not yet Jewish, said to David HaMelech says, who can help me remove the sword from the scabbard from Goliath's scabbard to go ahead or the sheath where the sword is normally kept. And he said, who's going to help me remove Goliath's head? And Uriah Achitu says, I'll help you in exchange if you give me a Jewish maiden to marry. And David HaMelech said, yes. Hashem says, a chutzpah, they're Jewish girls, they're not yours to give away to non-Jews, even if they convert. It's wrong of you to do that. I'll give away the woman that's destined to marry you. Or Yachiti, that's why he's called Hachiti. He's a Hittite. Okay, but he converts and he marries Bathsheba. Ultimately, of course, David HaMelech marries Bathsheba. Okay, we're all familiar with the story. So Natan HaNavi said to David HaMelech, you are the one. You're the rich guy with all the sheep over here. Why did you have to bother the poor guy with one sheep? Why did you have to bother Uriah Achiti? So now that you have that by way of introduction, Amar Le. So here you have Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha says to Rabbi Abba, Ani mehapich b'charara. You have a poor person who's trying to get a piece of cake. Uba acher, and somebody else comes. V'nat lahem menu, and takes it from him. What's the halacha? Again, what happened in the case here? Very simple. A poor guy, imagine you see a homeless person outside of a kosher restaurant, and the kosher restaurant's giving out, some free leftovers, and you, rich Jew, you live in Beverlywood, you come and you grab the sushi out of his hand and you eat it yourself. What would you say about such a guy? Nikra Russia, wicked person. Elamar, my time of Avdach. He says to him, what do you mean? You did that very thing. And he explained to him what happened. He says, Rav Gila was trying to buy the piece of land. You're a rich guy. You come along and you try to get the land before Rav Gila has a chance to buy it. You preempted him. You outbid him. So he said to him, Lo havi adana. I didn't know. I wasn't aware. The seller didn't tell me that Rav Gila was trying to buy it. Just as an aside, and we only have one lawyer with us tonight that I'm aware of. But just as an aside, we have two people who are married to lawyers that I'm aware of. What happened in our case? Let's review it. Rav Gidal tried to buy the land. Rabbi Abba preempted and bought it before him. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Abba is a Russia. He's a wicked person for doing such a thing. How many of you have ever bought real estate? Or sold real estate? Many of you. In our markets, in capitalist America, if you put a piece of property on the market, essentially you're putting it at a public auction, aren't you? You're allowed. It's not really an auction because I don't know if by law an auction you have to give it to the highest bidder. You, the seller, can choose who to give it to. You don't have to give it to the highest bidder. But essentially you're opening up the market and you're allowing people to bid on it, and you're going to decide who to sell to. Clearly, Rav Gidal and Rabbi Abba did not live in such a time period where that's how the market worked. Because if they did, Rabbi Abba did nothing wrong at all. Am I right? Because Rabbi Abba preempted him and he bought the land before him. It doesn't tell us he gave more money or whatever. Maybe he had a cat. It's like the Chinese come and they use cash to buy property here, right? Before you know it, it's off the market. we don't have a lot of information. We just know that Rav Gila was trying to buy it and Rabbi Abba outbid him. What's wrong with that? The answer is, it seems like they had a different system, that it was not okay to outbid somebody who's attempting to get it, which is fascinating because I don't know what system they had, but it's clearly not our system. Does that make sense? Does that make sense that I'm right in the Gemara, Myrna?
I think that if there's a first offer made, you have to consider the first offer in our system here in modern days. Like if I offer you, if you want to buy my house,
Yeah.
you make an offer and then Jerry makes an offer, I have to consider your offer.
Why?
Before I consider Jerry's. I just consider it, but then if you can also ask for you to match Jerry's offer.
No, for sure. But why do I have to consider, if there's money in escrow and I signed on the deal and I'm backing out of the deal, obviously that's unethical, right?
Right. Okay, I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
We're not talking about that stage in the process. We're simply, you said, you gave me you gave me an offer sheet. What's an offer sheet? An offer sheet's nothing. I could take the house off the market. It's not a. I mean, again, Herb can tell me if I'm wrong, but
He's not here.
it seems to be that way. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Ask me about the ocean.
I'm using blue for you here. All right. Okay, so let's finish the story for tonight, and then we'll call it a night. Elamar, so Rav Gida, Rabbi Abba, Rav Yitzchak Nachas says to Rabbi Abba, "My time Arav Adachi, why did you do that?" Again, he says, "I didn't know. I would never knowingly preempt somebody else." Okay. Hashanami Nesiva Nihilimar. He says, "Okay, let's go ahead and arrange a deal. Why don't you go sell it to Rav Gidal?" Amalai says, "Zivuni leimis vanina." There's a little something superstitious over here a little bit. He says, "To sell it, I don't want to sell it. Ara kamaisa, it's my first piece of property. V'lai misamna milsa. It's like not good for my mazel, for me to sell my first piece of property." I can't explain this Gemara. It's telling you some sort of a heebie-jeebie thing over here. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
He says, if he wants, I'll give it to him as a gift. Rabbi Gidal was, Rabbi Abba was very magnanimous. He says, I'll give it to him as a gift. The Gemara says, if Gidal lo nachisla, he didn't want it as a gift. Why? The ksiv v'soni matanos yichya. The pasuk says that you're not supposed to take gifts. Rabbi Abba lo nachisla mishum tibich bar Rav Gidal. Rabbi Abba was not happy with the land because he had preempted Rav Gidal. Lo mar nachisla lo mar nachisla. Neither one wanted it. No, this one didn't want it because he got it unethically by mistake. Again, the appearance is bad enough, right? The other one didn't want it because he didn't want to take it as a gift. And they basically donated it to the yeshiva. Okay, so this is the story. So when we look at this story next week in detail, we're going to look at the Rashi, we're going to look at the Tosfos, and we're going to see major differences in how they understand the story and how that's going to impact the actual halacha. Okay? I thank you so much for joining us tonight. I thank you for listening. I wish you all a wonderful, lovely evening.
Thank you, Rabbi, for your time.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Tomorrow night, we're going to have a shir about managing, regulating our emotions. Very important shir.